Hi, I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Stories, where I tell funny stories from my past or go on a rant in an effort to make you laugh. So, we're coming to that time of year. Halloween's coming up in a couple of weeks, and you know, man, I can't help but think how different things are since I was a kid. Like, let's start with the obvious. The obvious is the costumes have gotten way better since we were kids. Like, first of all, the options are so much bigger. And not just with the internet. The costume you want isn't at a store. You can go on the internet nowadays. We didn't have that when I was a kid. But even in the stores, they have so many options now. When I was a kid, it was very generic. It was like pirate, ninja, cop. It didn't get specific at all. Even with superheroes. Superheroes were not nearly as popular when I was a kid. So basically every year, you had two options for superheroes. You could be Batman or you could be Superman. Only occasionally would they throw in a third option, like maybe Captain America or Spider-Man. I remember one year, the options were Superman, Batman, Aquaman. Which even as a little kid, I was like, are you messing with us? Because let's face it, before Jason Momoa played him, nobody wanted to be Aquaman. Aquaman sucked. Nobody liked him, nobody cared about him, except maybe one nerd at the comic book store, and they would get ridiculed. It'd be like, you like Aquaman. You were such a nerd. Basically, you were the nerd among nerds. Now, he's popular. People want to be him. And they can. Every year. They can be Aquaman. Or Batman. Or Superman. Or Robin. Or Captain America. Or Spider-Man. Or Ant-Man. Or the Hulk. Or Cyborg. Or the Flash. Basically endless. If it's a superhero, you can probably find a costume for it. At a general place like Walmart or Target, you can find these costumes. When I was a kid, Walmart, Target, Kmart, where we normally shopped when I was a kid, generic. But even then, the superhero costumes when I was a kid sucked. They were like these long plastic suits that were very uncomfortable. You did not go out with nothing underneath these suits. You die. And they didn't even come in the sizes that they come in nowadays. I go looking for costumes with my kids nowadays, and there's like small, medium, large, extra large, double extra large. You flip it around and I'm on the back of the hanger. It has that little cardboard piece that tells you if this is their pant size and whatnot, then you should probably get this one. They didn't have that when I was a kid. They had 3 sizes. Small kid, big kid, adult. And which one you needed? You took the gamble. So you'd usually go for the one a little bit too big. And then Halloween night, you get to put on that big plastic suit and you're like, yay, I'm Batman. And you're stepping on the end of your pants so much that you've got a big like crater by the end of the night around your heel. Now they can get one very close to their size. And those superhero costumes, they came with that mask, that plastic mask that has Superman or Batman's face on it. That was it. Versus now, there's a Batman mask. Put it on. It can be full size, half size, whatever. Your face underneath. But even like another one I mentioned Ninja. I was a ninja 3 years in a row. I liked ninjas as a kid. And the costume was the same. It wasn't made of plastic. It was made of an actual fabric, but a very, very flimsy fabric. And it was also a very uncomfortable fabric. Like, first of all, the crotch, no matter what size you got, never went all the way up. It went to like half of your thigh mark, so it made you look like you had this big crotch and little legs. And I learned the first year wearing that at school. Wear pants underneath it. You spread your legs a little bit too far in that thing, and the part in the middle starts to open up. Like the 4 corners of it opens like a little flower. And I had to keep holding my legs together so nobody saw my underwear. Sucked! I got home and I was like, Mom, it ripped in the crotch. Can you sew it? Honey, that material is so cheap. If I tried to sew it, I would actually destroy it. So you know what she did? Duct tape on the crotch part. It said wear pants. So I got a pair of black sweatpants, wore it underneath. Nobody noticed. Thank God. Also, thank God, because I didn't realize how cold it was going to be that night wearing only that. Not to mention the accessories. It got to the point the 3rd year, I just asked my mom, like, hey, can we just go to the toy section and you buy me a ninja sword? Because that will actually last a little bit. The costume ninja sword, I pull it out of its little thin plastic sheet too hard. The blade is not coming with it, which was fine with me. I still played with the handle. I would just go outside and be like, now I'm a ninja Jedi. You laugh, but as kids, we actually had imagination. But still, nowadays, I see these ninja costumes. There's so many different types. and they're made of much better material. They'll last a little bit. And not only ninjas, but they'll like give you like famous ninjas. Like, you can be Scorpion or Sub-Zero any year you want. When I was a kid, that didn't happen until the movie came out. And even then, it wasn't as nice a costume. Because that's the thing that kills me the most. Is as a kid, you guys would go out, you'd buy your costume, you'd be all excited because you get to dress up. Because unlike nowadays, you couldn't do that whenever. You could only do that Halloween. There was no such thing as cosplay when I was a kid. There weren't websites where you could buy costumes any time of the year. You could only buy costumes around Halloween, and that costume was not going to last much longer than Halloween. Like, we'd get excited. My mom would tell us, though, no, you leave it in there. You don't wear it until Halloween. You can wear it to school Halloween day, and then you can wear it Halloween night. Unless it was one of those superhero ones, then you couldn't wear it to school. You could wear the mask. That's it. And as a kid, of course, I was like, that's mean. Why do you do that? I just want to dress up. But I get it now because I do that to my kids. I don't want them ruining it before Halloween. But after Halloween, like when I was a kid, wear it as much as you want now. And they will. Day after Halloween, they'll get up, they'll put their costume on, they'll go outside and play, pretending to be whatever they were that year. But here's the part that makes me a little envious of my kids nowadays. Is we would do that too when I was a kid. We'd get up, we'd put our costume on, and we'd go out and play for the hour maybe that it would last after we put it on to go play in it. Especially the superhero ones, the plastic ones. If you ran at even the normal speed of a kid, that thing was going to rip to shreds in 3 seconds. You had to play carefully in those things. And still, the best you got was like an hour before it wasn't wearable anymore. The only part of the superhero costume that would last would be the cape, because it was just like an itchy rope with plastic on the back of it. My kids' costumes, most of them lasted until they just didn't fit in them anymore. Like, no joke. About a year ago, kids were complaining that their closet was too full. We were going through and just getting rid of some stuff that no longer fit them. And among those things were a bunch of costumes. To put this in perspective, my oldest, who is now 12, this was a little over a year ago, so he's about 11. He still had his Iron Man costume from when he was 5. And other than it being dirty, it was just fine. It was still intact. And here's the thing, he wore it a lot that year. Almost every day he put his Iron Man costume on. He played in that Iron Man costume not just that year, the year after that, and the year after that, basically until he could not fit anymore at all into that Iron Man costume. He wore it. He wore it until he just couldn't breathe in it anymore. And it was still fine. Almost to the point I thought about donating it to like poor foster kids or something who can't afford costumes, but turns out those charities, they won't take used costumes. Which I understand. You don't know what the other person had. But still, but not just that, but the costume he wore the year after that when he was Spider-Man. And the costume he wore a year after that when he was Batman. And the costume he wore a year after that when he was Bendy. Basically every costume. Not just the costumes where he actually went out on Halloween. One year he smartened up and was like, they're not going to let me wear that costume before Halloween, so I'm going to use my allowance and buy another costume so I can dress up and play now. He did that for a few years. And all but one of them was still around. And the one that didn't last wasn't because it just simply ripped. He was playing a little bit too hard. He caught it on something and it ripped. Ours would just rip because we did something dastardly like put it on. We finally got rid of his costumes because he just outgrew them. But even his costume from last year. Last year he was Beetlejuice. He sometimes still wears the jacket around. Like this.
Hey Dad, it's showtime.
Some of you are like, wow, do you look at your son and think, dork? No, I look at my son and think, I'm proud of you. But even my middle kid, same thing. We ended up having to get rid of even the costume from last year because he had a growth spurt, didn't fit anymore. But he had them. Last year he was that Fox character from Five Nights at Freddy's. The year before that he was Sonic, had the costumes, they were just fine. My youngest still has his last 2 costumes. Last year he was Catboy from PJ Masks. The year before that, he was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's the cutest thing ever. He still has them both. These costumes last years. They can play in them for years. We were lucky if we could get 2 hours of play out of these costumes. But it's not just the costumes. It seems like as parents nowadays, we feel like we gotta do more for the kids. Like, for example, I went trick-or-treating with pillowcases. My parents didn't get us buckets. The only way we got a bucket when I was a kid is if we could convince them to take us to McDonald's during October, those tiny ones as the Happy Meal. Which bucket you had was like status. Some of the kids going like, I got Grimace! I got the Hamburglar! I got that bird girl that nobody wants or even remembers the name of. Screw this, I'll just use the pillowcase. Nobody ever got Ronald. But they were little buckets. They were only there to hold a tiny cheeseburger, a tiny thing of fries, and a tiny toy that was going to break in 20 minutes. So you put like 10 fun-sized candies in there, you had to dump it in the pillowcase anyway. We get our kids the buckets. But now we can't get them the blue ones, even if that is their favorite color, because then everybody's going to think they're autistic, because we have to do that for the autistic kids. Which, whatever, I guess. I don't know. I only know a couple of kids who are autistic, but I will tell you this, they don't like singling themselves out. They just kind of want to blend in. So in my opinion, if a kid's a little awkward and doesn't say the words trick or treat, why don't you just act like an adult and give them a piece of candy anyway? But whatever. They get their buckets. They get their costumes. They're going to last a millennium. And you know what else they get? They get me going trick-or-treating with them. Never happened when I was a kid. My dad never went trick-or-treating with us. And you want to know something? This isn't me taking a shot at my dad. I like to pick on him a little bit in these videos. He's cool with it. But this time I'm not picking on him. He never went. We never expected him to go. Nobody expected their dads to go. Because we'd go trick-or-treating and you'd never see a single dad. Unless he was a single dad. It wasn't even expected. It was just accepted. Okay, mom's taking you, dad's not going. Most years I have gone with my kids. There have been one or two that I had to work and I couldn't get out of it. But now I'm pretty good at making sure I get that day off. So I can go with my kids. Go trick-or-treating. Because I like being there with them. So in that case, I would say it's not only better for them, it's better for me. Because I kind of feel bad for my dad. My dad, of course, he never even thought about going with us. And I will say this to my dad and all the other dads that didn't go. You missed out. Because it's awesome. Sure, by the end of the night, you're freezing, you're tired, your legs hurt from all the walking around, and you're a bit cranky, but you know what? It is worth it. And not just for watching your kids have the fun they have, going from house to house, saying trick or treat, getting candy, coming up to you excited, look at what I got. But what makes it the most worth it is the moment you get home with your kids, they're going through all the candy, looking at what they got, and they look at you and they say, Dad, stop eating our candy. So there, that's my story video this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos, and leave a comment. Tell me some more differences of Halloween when we were kids versus now. Love you guys.